It's time for Don McDowell Outdoors on Fox Sports 910.
We've got an interesting show today. We're going to talk about some stuff that is pretty important in my world. We have some ordinary people in here doing some extraordinary things, and I want to introduce CW5 Andy Smeltzer and Master Sergeant Andy Gettle.
It's like flying over a sea of water, and there's no contrast between the sky or the earth at all. Especially considering the environmental conditions, depending on the heat. If it's hot, you get the heat waves going. I mean, it's just long story short of it, we're flying along, and we're taught with visual illusions in that dark is bad, light is good. Well, over there, that's the opposite. If you go over a dark area, it's basically you're flying over a flat bed of sand, known as a lake wadi. And we're flying, and unbeknownst to us, in front of us, there were 70, 100-foot sand dunes going straight across, left to right, in front of us. We never saw them.
And they were illuminated from the back, so there's no shadow, right? There's no contrast.
Yeah.
They just imagine the horizon just goes up.
Yeah. So we're recognizing that. So we're starting to I'm monitoring the radar altimeters and verifying the altitude that we're at. And we're showing about a 70 to 100 feet, 125. Every once in a while, 150, 175. But it kept moving back and forth, and so we started coming out of altitude to regain some type of contrast, to know how high we were, based on, and even our door gunners, they had lost contrast. They couldn't see the ground. So we're coming out of altitude. Well, due to physics, there was a sand dune in front of us, and we clipped the top of it. In doing so, Lord was with us, because I tell you, we clipped it such that it caused the aircraft to cartwheel and brake where it was designed to brake. We hit that sand dune at about 120 knots, and we tumbled the aircraft, and everybody survived. Now, I can't thank this man enough and his unit, because we're laying there, I'm laying there, and the only thing I can remember of it is I remember seeing white lights dancing around. And that was these guys looking for us. And I'll let Andy take it from there.
So this is where Gettle with the flashlight comes in?
Yep.
Yeah. It was actually one of those little old Army 90-degree green ones. So anyway, so we're out flying around, and what you do when you're flying around is you flight follow. So you're talking to an operations center someplace, and you're telling, hey, we're in the vicinity of this, that, and the other thing. And we were in a different battalion. There were two of us. Flying around from my battalion, my company, and we got a radio transmission from ops saying, hey, you're kind of in the same vicinity of the last reported position of this 2nd and the 17th Cav bird. Can you do us a favor and kind of fly over there and look for it? We've lost contact. And we were like, oh crap, only we didn't say crap.
Yeah.
And we said absolutely, and we started flying. So we gained altitude, because we were down in tactical altitudes too, because that's where you fight in a helicopter. You're down. We fly low for a reason.
Yeah.
Missiles can't shoot you down. We flight follow with an operations center. So they were flight following with whomever, and we got a phone call, not a phone call, we got a radio call that says, hey, can you guys, we've lost contact with this aircraft. Can you guys go that way and see if you can find it and see what's going on? So of course we said yes. You're not going to say no. So we climbed up out of tactical altitude, which is 100 feet and below, We climbed up out of toxic altitude, got up to about 500 feet, 1,000 feet, increases your visibility immensely, and now you're looking down instead of looking across these sand dunes. And we climbed up, and it was like you could see it from miles away, because it's just this black stuff on a white sea of sand. And we immediately called it. There's been an accident. The pilots are doing their stuff. They're getting grids. They're trying to figure out where it is. They're scrambling medevac out there. We called our sister ship. We formed up, and Sergeant Johnson, I was a specialist at the time. He was in the other aircraft, and we landed out on that sand dune. So he hit, how a sand dune forms is the wind pushes the sand, it stacks up, and then it falls off a cliff, right?
Vertical drop.
So you have a 90-degree, basically a 90-degree edge, and then you have a long sloping edge on the other side. Mm-hmm. The fact that they hit the sand dune is terrible, but how they hit the sand dune saved their lives. So they didn't hit the slope side and then roll off the cliff, because that would have killed them. They didn't hit it too deep that it impacted the cliff and stopped the aircraft. That would have killed them. They took about a 3 to 4 foot divot out of the top of the cliff side, and then, like Andy said, the aircraft cartwheeled down the long slope and broke apart. Tail boom came off, the rotor blades came off. Everything that was inside basically was now on the outside. So how the crew chiefs sit in the aircraft is they sit 90 degrees to the cockpit. So they're looking at the 3 and the 9 o'clock position. The pilots would be looking at the 12 o'clock, if you can imagine. So we landed, and my bird was first down, and took back off and began a high orbit. So the medevac could see the birds. So they turned on their landing lights. They went non-tactical. They turned on all white lights so everybody could see. We took the red lenses out of our flashlights so we could see. And then Sergeant Johnson's bird landed behind it, and they stayed on the ground while we ran around. The crew chiefs are the first 2 guys that we found. They were outside the aircraft. They were pretty badly hurt. One of them had multiple breaks in his leg, had hit the M60 inside the aircraft and was cut. His helmet was crushed, and it cut across his eye on a diagonal across his face. The other guy had impacted his weapon too, and he was pretty messed up. I went to the cockpit and looking for pilots, and there's no pilots in the cockpit. There's no room in the cockpit for pilots. The dashboard had caved into the seats.
Wow.
And they're not there. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to cut pilots out. That's what's going through my head. And and I start yelling, dude, they're not here, they're not here. And then we start running up and down that sand dune. And I tell you, I've never been a runner, but that night, you're so amped on adrenaline and you're just trying to do all the right things that you're running in the sand. And we ran around until we found them, and they were forward of the air. They had left the aircraft at some point. And again, I can only explain that crew making it by divine intervention. It's the only way, right? So here's the funny part about this whole story. So all of this night, I went out for an hour's of goggles. I ended up being out there for 6 hours.
One of the wildest stories I've ever heard. Knowing you guys, I know where this is coming from.